Prashanti.
Yeah.
ಹೌದು, ಹಂಗೆ ಇದೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ವರ್ಷ.
ಓಂ ಸಹನಾ ಭವತು ಸಹನೌ ಭುನಕ್ತು ಸಹ ವೀರ್ಯಂ ಕರವಾವಹೈ ತೇಜಸ್ವಿನಾವಧೀತಮಸ್ತು ಮಾ ವಿದ್ವಿಷಾವಹೈ. ಓಂ ಶಾಂತಿ ಶಾಂತಿ ಶಾಂತಿ. ಓಂ ಪಾರ್ಥಾಯ ಪ್ರತಿಬೋಧಿತಾಂ ಭಗವತಾ ನಾರಾಯಣೇನ ಸ್ವಯಂ ವ್ಯಾಸೇನ ಗ್ರಥಿತಾಂ ಪುರಾಣಮುನಿನಾ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಮಹಾಭಾರತಂ ಅದ್ವೈತಾಮೃತವರ್ಷಿಣೀಂ ಭಗವತೀಂ ಅಷ್ಟಾದಶಾಧ್ಯಾಯಿನೀಂ ಅಂಬ ತ್ವಾಮನುಸಂದಧಾಮಿ ಭಗವದ್ಗೀತೆ ಭವದ್ವೇಷಿಣಿ. The ninth chapter, what we started, starts with some very fresh new ideas, and that's what is, he says that Rajavidya Rajaguhyam. This is something which is supposed to be a secret, and also it is something which is very noble also. It's not only secret, but it is noble. And that kind of a knowledge that we are going to discuss about, that's what he says. And what are the things that are requirement for that? And that's what he gives in the form of, in the earlier sutra, in the first sutra he gives, that he says, Guhyatamam pravakshami anasuyave jnanam vijnanasam yajnatva mokshase shubhat. Pravakshami anasuyaye, that means somebody who has very simple, that is both in terms of that he has no negativity about that. Anasuya is that having no negativity, no complaint about it, no complaint. He raised above the level of complaint to acceptance of this thing, have a faith. And then second thing is that he also is a vibhakta, bhakta, that means to say who has an idea of unifying, putting them together. Bhakti, not in the sense of that somebody goes to the temple and does the puja, but bhakti in the sense of that somebody who has, it's opposite to vibhakta. Vibhakta means division, and bhakti is something which is opposite to vibhakta, integrating or putting them together. So therefore, basically, what is that which really differentiates is the one which is actual intellect. So therefore, rising above the level of intellect, that means you are not looking at from the point of view of intellect. You are able to transcend the intellect and look at this particular truth. Such a person is supposed to be the bhakta. And then it is the intellect always discriminates between the right and wrong, good and bad, and this ours and not ours. So there is always a division that intellect are trying to create. But this is one thing which he says that it is beyond that. That's the reason why he says that pavitram. As I said last time, pavitra is something which is against the good and bad, right and wrong, this kind of division that is there. And that's what is a state of pavitrata. Pavitrata means it's pure, like the way that nothing can really disturb that purity. That's what last time also I said, that the sky is always pure, whatever may be there in that space that is there. Similarly, the air, all the contamination will be there over a period of time, or air blows away all those things and then becomes absolutely pure. Water is also used for the sake of cleaning. So So that means basically nature itself has all those things which is in the form of purity. And that purity comes from the Brahman itself. So this is the idea that he says, Jnana Vijnana Sahitam Ajnatva Moksha Se Shubhat. That is something which takes us towards the moksha. Rajavidya Rajagurhyam Pavitram Idamuttamam Pratyakshavagamam Dharmyam. There's also another very important aspect of it. It is the path of dharma that we are looking into. Susukham Kartum Avyayam. Avyayam. It is never eternity. It does not have anything called as elimination. That's why it is its very nature, dharma. Like the way that the water's dharma is to wet, there is no way you can take out that wetness quality of the water from the water itself. It cannot be separable. That is what avinashi, that means that can never go away. Nature of the fire is to burn, and it burns. There is no question of going above that, going away from that quality. That's what it's dharma. Like this nature's dharma, whatever it is there, and that dharma away that we are trying to go. Mayate tamidam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina ashraddha dhana purusha. That's what is the next thing he says. Dharma tasya parampara aprapya mam nivartante mritya samsara vartmani. Now he brings about this idea of those who do not have that shraddha not being there, ashraddha. That means they have a doubting quality. They bring in the intellect. They try to look at from the point of view of intellect, discrimination, and dharmasya parantapa, and then they have not interest in this particular dharma way of looking at the whole thing. Aprapya mam nivartante. So mritya samsar vartmani. They do not reach me. That's what we have seen, that Param Brahman is something which is beyond. And in the previous chapter, the 8th chapter, we have seen Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartin Arjuna. Right from the Brahma Loka to everything, it has got a quality of coming and going. Whereas Mamupetya Kaunteya Punarjanmana Vidyate. They will not get into the Punarjanma once they understand and reach me, they identify with me. And such a person is not going through this birth and death, this cycle, mrityu cycle that they don't go through. So the one who does not have that shraddha and dharmasyasya in dharma and parantapa, hey Arjuna, aprapya mam nivartante. They don't get into me. Because the simple thing is that they don't even accept that there is something which is like that. There is something like a consciousness, there is something like a Brahman which is there behind. Even if they think that their own they are conscious about, a lot of people have this idea that the consciousness which they think of, that their consciousness, whatever it is there, it's a product of the mind, it's a product of the intellect. It is something which is trying to intellectually look at things, but they don't look at it as something which is the idea of the consciousness itself, the basic consciousness because of which all these things happen. Then they don't accept it or they don't agree with upon that. So therefore that becomes like a part of the consciousness. In fact, many times when this idea of what is called as that you are the consciousness yourself, they think that this consciousness is a product of the mind. And this consciousness that what we think of is given by the society, given by the culture. Last time I was telling about that whatever that there are different levels of this conscience, what we call it as conscience, and various levels that are there. One level of conscience is what the society gives us. In a society, we have to follow certain rules and regulations. And those things you keep deep inside yourself, and that continuously keeps giving you the suggestion, ideas. So that is supposed to be a level of conscience that is there, which is given by the society outside. The second degree of higher degree of level of conscience that is there is again the idea that is given by your own ideology. Like for example, if you are a communist, if you are a follower of Marxists and all that, you have certain ideas that are there, and your conscience always looks at those ideas as the main thing. And everything is with that reference that they do it. Similarly, if you are a Hindu, You have a Hindu conscience. If you are a Christian, you have a Christian conscience. Muslim conscience. So there are certain things which these conscience pricks us. Like the way for a Christian, maybe for somebody who believes in Christianity so strongly, his conscience is constantly pricking him, saying that, look, Sunday you have to go for Mass and then you are not going. So therefore, it is there behind. And he listens to that. We all raise this kind of conscience at various levels. The society given conscience, religion given, my faith given conscience, all these things are there with us. So, and these are all very important things because we take these things very deep into us. The simple reason is that they act as a police within us. We don't require an outer police to see that we are taken care of. The inner police is there, and that's what is the form of conscience that works us. But then these conscience still belong to the institutions in the world outside. It may be religious institutions, it may be social institution or something like that. But all these things belong to one thing is the external world. And second thing is that they are bound by the rules and regulations. Whereas deep inside you are the conscience, and that you can reach that state beyond this kind of thing only with the help of shraddha and bhakti. This is what we have seen. The simple basic idea is to see that how we can integrate. And this is same thing which is coming from. That's why he says bhakti as well as the shraddha. These are the things that are there. And as I last time I was saying that shraddha, often translated as faith and belief and all that, I have given the details that shraddha has nothing to do with the faith or belief. It's something which is very individual because shraddha and belief, faith and belief, all those things are to see that belong to the world outside, external world. Whereas shraddha is not for gaining anything from the external world, but it is something which is helpful for the inner journey, inward journey. That's why we have to have. One who does not have the shraddha and a person who has no shraddha, that means to say anything about the inner, he doubts. Much definitely he doubts about the idea of a Atman being there, consciousness being there within us. And these are the people who think that matter is everything and whatever that has come is out of this matter that has come, developed out of matter. So they are limited at that matter level. They have not gone around along that matter level. So Ashraddhana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapya Mam Nivartante. That means to say they don't take this step beyond the manifested world, beyond the limited world, beyond whatever the senses trying to present it. And such a person, as long as that this world is there, this senses are there, this body is there, they are there. But one day or the other, this body has to go, the senses have to die. Many times what happens is before the body dies, the senses always die. So therefore, essentially that he gets caught up in this particular mrityu samsara vartmani, goes and comes back. This and this going and coming back can be in different cycles that are there. And as it is now, you see that this manifested world is governed by various cycles. In a simple way, ordinary human level, that when we look at it, we are bound by so many cycles, the cycles of the day and night, and the cycles of the season, cycles of the month after month, and all that. Some of the cycles we create, some of the cycles nature creates, but we are caught up in this particular cycles of coming and going. So there is a point where that we go downwards, like in the wheel, and then there is another point where it starts coming up, and that coming up looks like to be positive, and then going down looks to be depressive. So this is what is everybody is going through everywhere that this cycle is there. And we are bound by this particular cycle. And so therefore he says that Mrityu Samsara Vartmani. This Vritti, Vartmani, is the way that you going round and round and round is what is called as Vrittam Vritti, or the idea of cycle that's going on. We pass through several cycles. It's not one cycle. We have several cycles through which that we pass through. So there is something which is beyond these cycles, and that's what is basically the way that all these cycles occur behind something which absolutely has no movement at all. Until that time, there is movement. Some things appear to be not moving, but you critically watch that they are also moving, like the way that a solid stone seem to be absolutely stable at one place, but then when you decipher it, and you go to the subtler aspect of it, when you look at the atom, and from there when you go to subatomic particles, you see that there is tremendous amount of speed that's going on. You don't see it outside. The speed is there, but nevertheless, inside. They are caught up in this coming and going, the speed. And exactly that is the same thing that he says here, saying that somebody who does not have a shraddha, which means he does not in dharma, does not mean that means actually that he doesn't believe in something which is transcendence, which is subtle behind it, and therefore such a person will be get caught up into mrityu samsara sagarat vartmani. Mayata tamidam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina matsyani Matsyani sarvabhutani nachapam teshva avastita. So this is where now Krishna comes to the next idea, which is a opening of some profound thing that is there. The whole of the universe is permeated by me. Mayata tamidam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina. Who is this me? It is the question of the unmanifest divinity that is there. Avyakta Murtina, the unmanifest divinity that is there, of all the beings, and all the beings rest in the idea within me. Therefore, really speaking, I am not present in them. They are within me, but I am not present in them. This is what he says. Ashraddha, this Maya Tattva Vidam Sarvam, Jagad Avyakta Murtina, Matsyani Sarva Bhutani, Nachaham Teshu Avasthitaha. I am not there in that. The next sutra that he gives, Nachamatshyani Bhutani Pashyame Yoga Maishwaram Bhuta Brunna Cha Bhutasto Mamatma Bhuta Bhavanaha. Then he says that all these beings abide not in me, but behold the wonderful power of my only Yoga Maya, and through the sustaining and the creator of being, myself in reality dwells not in those beings. So all these things are there within me because of the Yoga Maya. All the beings abide not in me, but behold the wonderful power of Yoga Maya. Through this Yoga Maya, that it exists, all those things, though the sustainer and the creator of beings, through the sustainer and creator of being, myself in reality dwells not in those things. Yathakasha sthito nityam vayuhu sarvatrayo mahan tatha sarvani bhutani matsyani chupadharaya. Just as the akasha sthito nityam vayuhu, as the extensive air that is there in the space, is moving everywhere. It's there and everywhere. It does not have one particular place. Likewise, know all these beings from who have originated from my thought abide in me. Tatha sarvani bhutani matsyani iti upadharaya. Sarva bhutani kaunteya praktim yanti mamikam kalpakshaye punasthani kalpado visujamyam. Now, therefore, hey Arjuna, during the final dissolution, that means to say at the time of kalpante, when the kalpa comes to an end, kalpakshaye, and at that point of time, all the beings enter into my prakriti, sarva bhutani kaunteya, prakritim, that means into the prakriti that is there. And at the beginning of the creation, I send them back again. So this is what he says, that they enter into the prakriti and then they go into that unmanifest and then come back to the manifest, and whatever that the role that they are supposed to play and occupy, that's what they get into. So these are the sutras. Let us see this time. Let me try to cover these ideas behind that. One thing what happens is that there is something which is basically explainable, understandable through the senses, through the mind, through the intellect. Mind and intellect and senses, all this whole set of things, and these set of things that they give certain ideas certain philosophies, certain things that are there in the world. All these things belong to the world. So anything that you are trying to work with, either the senses or the mind or the intellect, it's all about the world outside. Now, what is the most important thing about the world outside is that it is basically that it is bound by law, cause and effect connection. Then there is a cause, then there is an effect. There is a way that is there, so therefore it results into that. This is how the child develops the intellect. He starts questioning why. Why means basically you're trying to find out what is the cause. And then people also explain about the cause. It happened because that this is like that. It happened because that is like that. This is what is the intellect, the way that we try to function. Now, the moment that we say that it is law bound, that means to say it does not have the freedom. The degree of freedom is not available. That is the idea of law abiding. That means there is no freedom in that. Yes, there is certain amount of uh, there is something that we have chosen to be, give up our freedom to become something where we are bound. But this idea of giving up our freedom also is there by us. That's what is a choice that's there within us or within this consciousness. So therefore, essentially what happens is that the whole creation is made out of the law. Law means mechanical, it is law bound, it is created by this thing. And this is what basically modern science started looking at it. The whole approach of modern science, intellect, is to find out what is the cause behind it. Why this happened? Or what is the cause behind this? By doing this, that by doing what this will happen. This is what is the reason for doing it. This is what the science always progressed. Therefore, that everything they try to convert into the matter. That means to say bound by the law. So they found out that they were looking at the matter so that these things become like this, like that they were looking at matter and the law connected with the matter. But then there is one point that they came to a level where they found out that there is something which happens without any reason, without any law. They don't understand that. And when it goes to the subatom particle, that they started looking at it. As last time I said, that this question of why the electron is going around the various nucleus that is there, and then why electron and proton are together, there is no reason why it is like that. You don't explain the reason. It looks like that there is one particular principle that it is there. It is like that. Then they found out that there are certain things which are not found by the senses, but then we have to accept that. We have to accept that and they accept it as a though part of the science, though it's not really scientific. That means to say it is not that there is a cause and effect connection, but then there is something which they have accepted it. Like the most beautiful thing that they have accepted is something about the gravitation. The apple falls on the ground. In fact, it happens in such a way that before Newton said that, there's absolutely no way that you could have a clue that Earth is pulling the apple. I mean, this itself is an extraordinary thing. This is what in Yoga Vasishta, in Patanjali Yoga Sutras, he says that you come to a realm where the science can never approach, scientific temperament can never approach, but then you are revealed with the truth that is there existing. The existing rules are there, you don't question it. And one such rule that exists, but then you don't question is the rule called as the gravitational law. The gravitation, that means to say, apple, the matter pulled by the earth. As I was telling one time that this particular idea that connection of these two aspects are not there, then what happens? It is like the way that you go to the beach, all the particles of grains that are there, one does not connect with the other. There's independent like that. But there is another question that comes about that. Why all those particles which absolutely do not have any connection with each other or anything like that, why are they staying on the beach? Why don't they flow away in the air? Why don't they just flow away, go away? Because they can't go away because they're bound by the earth. That means the earth pulls them. This is what Newton said about the gravitational law. Imagine, I always get fascinated about by that. How could anybody think of that Earth is pulling the apple onto the earth? I mean, no stretch of imagination from the material point of view of the world. You can understand that, you can relate that, you could have thought about this. And I'm sure that at that time when Newton first of all said that apple falls on the ground, because that it's not that apple is falling down on the ground, because the earth is pulling the apple. And because that apple is coming to the earth. And when he said it, probably people would have thought that he is mad. And they would have probably, in fact, they could have easily beheaded him if he were to be somewhere near the church those days, because that they have so many persecuted so many people who told about these truths. But then he published articles, he showed that what happened is that even though he proposed the idea that it is the force which is pulling the apple onto the earth, he could not show that force. He could not give anybody any evidence about that, excepting that its effect one could see that. The effect is that apple falling on the ground. The effect is water flows downwards. The effect is that anything that goes in the world, you throw away from the earth, comes back to the earth, as if it is returning to home. So this particular effect you have seen, and the actual thing that you have not seen, nobody has seen the gravity. Nobody has seen the electricity. We only see the effect of that electricity. Like that, there is something which is not seen, which is not perceived by the senses, but only thing is that we see the effect. Now, in gravity, that people saw the effect and they accepted it. But why don't they accept the same way that two people, they find each other very attractive, they come together, and then that is, we don't accept it. We say that why that they should be getting attached. But this is kind of a phenomena that is there all over the nature, that you can see that everywhere it is there. Sometimes the effort comes from within. Sometimes the nature provides that effort. Right from the way that the gravity is the one which brings about the solid matter to the solid matter, that brings together. And that's what is the way gravity works. But when you look at those small little subatomic level there, inside the atom that you see, what puts that together is this particular idea that various electrons are all, that they are going round and round the nucleus. And then as if that they are connected with that nucleus by some unknown thread behind it. So they also have that. The same way when you look at this plants, they similar kind of plant, there is wind, blows and then takes away. There are these insects that are there, the butterflies, they sit on the pollen, they sit on the flower, pick up the pollen, put it on the pollen in some other thing. Therefore, the procreation takes place. So, what is that attraction between this and that? The similar kind of species, like that you can see in all the species. A mosquito is attracted to another mosquito. A rat is attracted to the rat. In the nature, there seem to be this kind of an arrangement that is there. One is close to the other. So now what happens is that all these things are very similar at various levels. When it comes to further animals, they try to protect their species, they try to multiply their species, and they try to work to see that they are together. And much then later on, that it comes to the human being. So human being has much more deeper kind of a thing, because that is a complex personality. Matter is getting attracted to the matter, what we call it as the gravity. But then when we come to the plant, this is what we call it as pollination. It's also nothing but getting attracted towards the same kind of species. And it is to maintain the species, that this is what is the force which is provided in them, to see that how the integration takes place. And this is what is like what I was telling about the vibhakta is separation. Bhakti is that which brings the together. Like the way that you say that the gravitation is one aspect of bhakti, which is at a very gross level. Then we look at the pollination that is there in the case of these things. They are supposed to be another form of bhakti that is there. Or the electrons going around the nucleus. holding onto the nucleus all the time and creating an impression that it becomes like a solid object. And even that's also about the bhakti. A person who has understood this kind of an aspect is he can see the bhakti in throughout the nature, everywhere it is there. And this coming together. Now, what happens is that at the body level, when we have this, in the case of animals, that they have an attraction toward that. The season comes, it manifests, and then they procreate, the body to body attraction. When it is called at the human being level, when the body to body attraction is there, we call it as kama. And kama is there throughout. In fact, when the child grows to a certain degree, and then this can immediately manifests, and then it is there throughout the life. So it continues. And that kind of a thing further, when we go up at the species level, at the human being level, when it comes to the level of mind, and that's when we call it as prema. And prema, the more common form of this prema that we have, all these things are nothing but prema, but more common form of prema, what we call it as sneha. Sneha manifests so much between two individual human beings. And the sneha belongs to the mind. In fact, most important thing is, if we did not have this sneha, then this nature cannot be together. Then this mankind cannot be together. Society could not be built. Society built because of this particular sneha. And the same sneha, when we can manifest across the whole, say, our own family or our own society, then this is where basically all these ideas of protecting the nation, protecting the culture, protecting our civilization, all these things come about. It's all because that we have this one element called as sneha. Sneha is the one which brings people together. When we are traveling together in the same train, so we become co-passengers, there is a sneha that's available. So these are the things which are there. But then the moment that when we try to become individual, this is what is aspect of bhakti. But what is vibhakti? The moment I say that I have nothing to do with you, I am not caring for you, this is what is vibhakti. And that becomes like dvesha, that becomes like you are ignore all these things. And further, this is at the mind level that we have this prema, at the mind level that we have the sneha, at the body level we have in the form of kama, at the mind level that we have the form of prema, but at the level deeper than that, at the consciousness level that when we look at it, at the chetana level when we look at it, or at the level of atmasthiti when we look at it, it makes the form of either the shraddha or bhakti. Shraddha, bhakti are the things which we connect at the consciousness level. And the consciousness level is not at the body level. We don't even care for whether that person is now or not. That's why we have such a great shraddha towards Rama, shraddha towards various celestial beings. At least historical there. Even non-historical also that we have the shraddha, we have that bhakti. Because that the connection is at the consciousness level, at the level of Atma, not at the level of body. So between the Guru and Sishya, the connection between them is not one of prema, one of kama, but it is one of shraddha. So therefore, what happens is shraddha brings us together to see that the knowledge transfer takes place. So therefore, ashraddha dana is a person who doesn't have that idea of journey together with that, taking the baton and going further. That aspect is not there. That continuum is not created because that shraddha is not there. So when you cannot create a continuum yourself, then there is a question of that integration. Disintegration takes place, not the integration. And that disintegration that takes place is what is called as death. So now this, whatever that is binding the whole creation, and that's what is amurtinaha. Amurtinaha is unmanifest. Like the way that gravitation itself is a force that is there, but you cannot measure it, you cannot see it. It is amurti, unmanifest. That's what he says. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina. Jagat is there, but in this Jagat, this Avyakta Murti, that means to say unmanifest kind of form that is there. It is formless form. It is unmanifest to manifest. But all that what you see is that which is binding that. Now you look at that. That is something which is at various levels, it is existing. And highest level of existence is existing in the human being. So this is what basically is the one which is really bringing us together, bringing the whole thing together. So, and what I said that at the human level, there is another very interesting thing. I said that the body level connection is supposed to be the karma or the sex. But human being is somebody, it's not just only that, all the other species, they just behave as a species is bound by whatever the activity that's there, like the way that they eat food when they're hungry. The food and hunger, they are created relation to each other. They are connected with that. That's all that they eat, and then otherwise beyond that they don't unnecessarily hoard it. Similarly, when there is a season for sex, then they will go for sex, and then the sex will take care of that. But then when they come out of it, that's it. They don't bother about that. So they're all like that. There is nothing which is subtler, which is more cheaper than the sex at all in the case of other species. Of course, in the plants and all those things, that the pollination is taken by some other this thing. There's no question of any flower trying to reach another flower. That particular aspect is not there. A pollen trying to reach another pollen is not there. It's all nature arrangement, that is what they follow, right up to the human being. But the moment that human being comes, it becomes really difficult because the simple thing is he is such a complex structure. He can go from the level of sex all the way to the spirituality, all the way to the shraddha and bhakti, but he can also degenerate himself below the spirit, below the sex. See, this is something which is very interesting. He can degenerate himself below this sex, below the question of body level. And what is the way that he goes below the body level? Is that some people are so deeply caught up in trying to make money or acquiring more and more money. For that sake of acquiring more and more money, they don't even care for family, they don't even care for wife, and they're just continuously active in trying to count the money. And that's what they spend all the time for. And some people go for the position, the recognition, and this can take them to a next level where they don't even care for their family, wife or children and all that. Not that just because that they don't care for, that they are like Buddhas, because Buddha also did not care for. But Buddha did not care for, not for the sake of going down to take an interest in the money, this, that, but in the case of all the higher growth, higher development. But these people are going behind the money, going behind the name and fame, going behind acquiring objects. For that sake, they leave all those things, they sacrifice their sex, they sacrifice their love. All those things do not exist. And that's what is the story of Midas. Beautiful story. It gives us an idea. This fellow was so much interested in money, money, money. He did not care for anything. And therefore, when the God appeared to me in his dream and then said that what you wanted, he said that whatever I touch becomes gold, so that I will have gold everywhere. And then he did the same thing. And the God Dionysius has actually accepted that. He said, okay, whatever you touch becomes gold. Next morning he got up, he did not believe whether it is what he saw in the dream is true or not. Then he went on, trying to take water, and then he held the water glass. The whole tumbler became gold, and the inside water also became gold. Water he could drink, but gold he cannot drink. So on one side that he was so excited that it became gold, but on the other side he did not know how to drink, what to use for drink. Then the servant came, touched him, and the servant became gold. And then his daughter came and touched him. She became gold statue. Now he started lamenting. So he said, why did I ask for this? That everything has to become gold when I touch it. In fact, he says, "O Dionysius," then later on he says, "O Dionysius, please take away these hands, Midas touch." This is what is called as Midas touch, which make everything gold. Take away these hands, give me those ordinary hands of a human being. So that what happens is that I can touch something and feel that person's touch, not like this gold. See, when I had the human hands, people used to come to me, people used to follow me, and they used to be with me, they used to enjoy me. But ever since that I have this Midas hands, I have this hands of gold touch, and now people run away from me because that I might touch them and they become gold. This is what they become like statue. My own daughter became statue. Everybody runs away from me, take away from that. This is what is the idea when man goes to that level, below the level of kama, below the level of even sex, and that is when he becomes like a Midas hands, like the hands of the golden touch. And then you pray that please take away that. So when you go below that, then what happens is that money has become more important than they sex than other things. All love, compassion, all those things are far above, but then this is much below. So, which is cheaper? Because you are giving up even the family, even being with wife and all those things, but you are doing this kind of an activity. It is the same thing about the position, about the power. So, what happens is that we are going down below. And this going down below can only be possible for the human being. And for that sake, for going down below the level of even the kind of a sex, that means that sex is where you recognize another human being. But then you go below that, that means to say you don't even care for the human being. You don't mind eliminating human being for going for that. So what an unfortunate thing it is that we are born as a human being. An animal at least takes care of its own species, but human being fights with another human being just because of some ideology, just because of some money, because of these things. So anybody who is ready to kill another human being of his own species is a person who has gone below the level of even an ordinary human being. And that level only human being can bring about himself. Particularly, not only unfortunate the thing that he will just become like that, and animals do not go below the level of animals, but the human being can go because the human being has an intellect, and that intellect also supports him to go down below. Therefore, this is the way that the journey in the opposite direction can take place when you start becoming more and more interested in the below the things, normal level, body level, and that's what is the journey that people take. But then when you go to the higher and higher level, this is what is divisive and that's what is inclusive. Inclusive journey is in the higher upward journey, and that's what maya tatamidam sarvam jagat avyakta murti. Now this aspect of it which is going down below, it is all right, but then logically that somebody has this idea of love, compassion, all those things. These are all the things which you cannot explain from the intellect point of view. Intellect can only take to the level of recognizing another human being. But then after that, intellect is the one where all this journey takes place, which is supposed to be shraddha, bhakti, love, all these aspects are there, which is beyond the level of intellect. Only this culture has given us the idea of what is supposed to be beyond the level of intellect, and these are the things which are supposed to be like the way that it is unmanifest, like the way that a small little simple thing that I say that even the gravity is something, gravitational force is something that you cannot see. And how can you see something like love, compassion? These are the things that are there. You cannot see it. So, therefore, this is something which has to be believed in. And if you have to believe it, you must have shraddha for that. And once you have that, you can see the upward journey starts. And I am controlling this whole universe, as I said. The Jagat Amurtinaha, the whole world, is bound by these forces that are there. Like the way that the electrons and nucleus are bound by what is called as a force, which is avyakta force, Amurtinaha. The same way that the species is maintained by the species, because that Amurtinaha kind of a force that is there. Similarly, the earth is together and earth is going around the sun. It is because of there is an amurta sambandha, amurta relationship, unmanifest relationship in the form of gravity that is there. Much deeper than that, when we go that, a plant species maintenance takes place because that there is amurta shakti behind it. Animals maintain the species because they are Amurta Shakti. When it comes to the human being, the relationship and the touch with the divinity that is there is by the Amurta Shakti that is there in the form of Sneha, in the form of Bhakti. Highest of that level is in the form of Shraddha and Bhakti. That's where basically that I am in the form of Amurta Shakti. And this is what is the Dharma. And dharma way, when we have the shraddha, when we have bhakti, and such a person is the person, and that's what reaches me. Because this consciousness, basic idea of consciousness, as I said, that kama belongs to the body level, prema belongs to the mind level, shraddha, bhakti belongs to the consciousness level. So you directly transport it to the consciousness level transaction. When you go to that, that's what you are. So maya tatamidam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina matsyani bhutani achaham teshu avastitaha. So therefore he says, Krishna says that this unmanifest, there's no, when it is question of unmanifest, that means that there is no boundary also. Avyakta murtinaha, and that's what is the whole Satchidananda Swarupa that is there, and that is me. This is what Krishna says. So therefore he rises a level which is beyond the level of intellect. When we go beyond the level of intellect, then we have Shraddha, Bhakti, and you are into the area of Avyakta Murtinaha. And that's what is the idea that we get into. Unfortunately, that because the science has become so prominent, scientists put that idea of Shraddha and Bhakti below the level of intellect, but it's something which is far beyond the intellect. Intellect can never reach that, can fathom that. And idam sarvam jagato, all this world that is there, that you see in front of it, and it's all completely by this particular avyakta, amurta kind of a thing that is there, which is me. And all these sarva bhutani, all this world that is there, they all become matsyani. That means to say, they all have come to this existence because of this avyakta amurta shakti that is there, unmanifest and then limitless kind of shakti that is there, and that's what is me. And it is because of me all these things are there, therefore they are all there within me, but I'm not within them. And I'm not within them in the idea is that the idea why he said like that, it's like the way that all the fish is there inside the ocean, but the ocean is not there inside the fish, because ocean is not just only some little water that is there, but ocean is the oceanness, and that is something which cannot be there in anything other than in the ocean itself. Therefore, he says that they are there within me, but I am not there within them. That means to say, don't search for your divinity inside this limited thing. This is what people try to do it. They try to find their unlimited Brahmananda, a part of that limit of it, in the case of matter outside. See, though the scripture says that Vishayanandoho Brahmananda, all the sensory happiness that it is there is also like bits and pieces of that ananda that we are getting. Just because that we get the bits and pieces of ananda in the objective world outside, don't search for that. The unlimited ananda inside that. Hold on to the ananda, leave the object behind is something which is Wonderful. As Yoga Vasishta puts it, Drishya Darshana Sammante Ya Anubhuti Anamaya, that extraordinary anubhuti that you have, Tam Avashtabhya Tishtatvam. Stay in that state, and that's wonderful. But what happens is we try to hold on to the object so that this object can give me more and more. The other day, somebody asked me this question also, saying that all these limited things put together, will it become the whole? See, because that limited things come from the whole. So when you put all these limited things put together, can it become like the whole? No, it's not like it's like the way that a rose flower is there, so beautiful, so extraordinary. And when you take it to the laboratory, he opens it up and then in the laboratory distills it and finds out that this is nothing but this acid, this alkaline, that alkaline, this material put together in test tubes, and this is what is one rose. Now, when you mix all those things, do you get the rose? No, you don't get the rose because the whole rose is so much more than what the objects that are given, the parts that are there. So, the parts put together can never become the whole, but then parts come from the whole. The same way that here he says that I am there, aham teshu navasthitaha. I am not there in that. But then Sarvani Matsyani, that means all these things that are there are coming out of me. That means to say, whatever that little things that are there, spark of me that has become all those things. So, in every object and everything, that spark is there. That spark is me. Because of me, all these things happen. But don't search for me in that spark, that small little thing. It's like the way that you go to the beach and then so beautiful, so wonderful, so nice, and in the evening and all that is there. So you wanted to make that your wife who is at home to enjoy that beauty at the morning, that evening, lovely nature and all those things. So you take an empty box and then you fill that with the nature outside and lock it, seal it, and bring it back home. Open the box. You can't see that beauty that is there. You cannot search for that in this. That's a foolishness to see that you can limit that. Why? Because the senses only know how to limit. Senses do not know how to see the expansiveness. You have to rise above the level of senses. And that, when you are sitting in the beach looking at that beauty at that time, it helps you to transcend that. Nachamam sthani bhutani pashyame yogameshwaram bhuta bhrunna cha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. So, all these bhutas, all these prani that are there, all these things, they are there. And all these things, bhutani, matsyani, name, that means to say they are not there within me, but Aishwaram Yogam Pashya Bhuta Bhruk Bhuta Bhavana. What happens is that Nachamatsyani Bhutani Pashyame Yogam Aishwaram. It is through that Yoga Aishwarya, that means to say, it is the divine quality of Yoga Shakti, divine quality of Yoga Shakti. Then through when you look at that way, then you can see the divinity that is there. Bhuta bhrunna cha bhrutasto mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. So the idea is that bhuta bhavanaha, when you look at these things from the point of view of when you are having that yoga way of looking at, and that Ishwariya Shakti that is there, and that's what is the Yoga Shakti, that is what you perceive. And when you see that Yoga Shakti, that's what is the thing which is taking care of this particular, all the species that are there, everything that is there, taken by this Yoga Shakti. This is what we hear in this philosophical way, he said. But in a normal sense, we say that how beautifully this can be applied in a simple sense, that to say that you know that when we fall sick, sickness is something which is trying to disintegrate us. It is maybe because of some influence of outside, something that is happening. And then what happens is that we have the health within us, and that health we call it as healing ability. And that healing ability is the one which is called as the yoga shakti within us. And that trying to put us together and then try to manage us together. If somebody can surrender to this yoga shakti within, such a person, that means he is trying to give himself to that unifying kind of a force that is there. This is what is bhakti. This is what is the way that integrating a kind of a activity that happens. It does not allow us to disintegrate. This is the beauty of it. And that is what is called as a yoga shakti. What we say in the therapy, what I say in the therapy normally is that it's not the doctor who is giving you health. Doctor is giving a kind of an ambience around you so that your health that is there within you kicks in. And that's what takes care of you. And that ambience is created by various things that are there around. And when naturally you create that ambience and then try to see that the yoga shakti, yoga maya is the one which kicks in to see that you are protected, you are taken care of. And that's what is the idea that we see in yoga therapy. Yoga maya, yoga shakti is basically yoga therapy where your inner kind of a balance, harmony, and that's what kicks in. And that is something which is taking care of you. So, yathakasha sthito nityam वायुः समग्र सर्वत्र गोमः तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मस्थानि चुपदायते. Like the way that the akasha that is there, nityam vayu samagra sarvagataha mahan. So this whole wind that is there everywhere in the sky and the space that is there, and it is there in this, but at the same time it also enters into each one of them and then takes care of him for that point of time. I breathe in and breathe out. I'm actually breathing in, breathe out. This whole thing that is there in this, not only me, all the species, everything, all that's going on is because that prana that is there in the whole universe is the one which is sustaining us. So therefore, this is what is that which sustains. How much it has to go, how much it takes care of it. It's all because of that yoga maya that is happening. Look at the simple thing that there is so much of sun, temperature, everything is there. A small little range of temperature that we survive. A small little range. And it maintains us in that particular way. Slightly going here and there, it takes care of it. A small little range of various things in the nature that we survive. It may be about the temperature, it may be about the amount of oxygen. All those things are the things which are so preciously taken care of. Who takes care of it? What makes that possible? It's the yoga maya, yoga shakti that's there within us, which takes care of us. So that yoga shakti that is there, me, in everyone that is happening. It's not that I do it, but it is that my yoga maya, yoga shakti, which is taking care of us. Recognize that aspect of it. That's how I'm in that. Somebody who can really relate to this yoga shakti, yoga maya, is the person who can understand what. And this yoga maya, yoga shakti, you cannot see, you cannot look at from the point of view of any material kind of a measurements or anything like that. Sensory perception, it's far beyond that. It's a wonderful thing that we should have. That kind of a thing. We're very happy about that. So we'll stop it at that level. The seventh sutra. We'll continue the sutras next time when we meet. Thank you so much. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste. So, any questions?